and we're gonna see the little check marks appear. There they are. All right. And oh, I can see some people are tuning in. So today we're talking credit card points and how you can get more profit in your small business by spending some time thinking about who and where you should be spending your money with. So let me hit the intro reel, and then we're going to get right in here and talk to Ross.
I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses while controlling risk. So if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Are you thinking of growing your business or beginning a journey into entrepreneurship? Take a shortcut to success by buying an existing and profitable business the right way. Visit businessbuyeradvantage.com and learn more about my online training, group coaching, and consulting services designed to help you win.
All right, everyone, welcome. I'm happy to have Ross with me. Ross was actually a special guest speaker that we had in the Business Buyer Advantage group coaching program, who came in and did a very detailed seminar about how you go about creating a plan to maximize credit card points and all the benefits that accrue to those. As a person who loves these perks, and as a guy who used to work for Amex, who used to help people put these kinds of plans in place, I really have a soft spot in my heart for this topic. I get really excited about the idea of flying somewhere on points. And so, Ross, I want to give you a minute to introduce yourself. Why don't you tell everyone who you are, and more importantly, how you got into the world of actually being a professional points maxer? Like, what I don't even know what you would call yourself. What's your title?
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, David. I'm excited for people who tuned in, excited if you're joining again, if this is your first time. We're going to have a really good conversation. But like David mentioned, Ross Alcorn, I'm the founder of Itinerary Boss. I'm out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I became what David mentioned, a point maximizer, a really helping people learn how to get rewarded more from their everyday spend. This came from my background of being a road warrior sales rep for 10 years in the corporate world. When I wanted to have a better work-life balance, I then realized, okay, how do I optimize the credit card spend that I'm already doing personally to then pay for my travel? I was booking all our group trips for all our friends. So for a couple of years, I was the smart one who was earning all the points on that. And then people started to catch on. But from that, when I stopped traveling, really dove into and started investing in real estate, learning the benefits of business credit cards, along with personal, and being able to pair those points. That really is what helped me jumpstart my travel business at the end of 2023. And since then, just every day talking to, people, everyday spenders, whether it's on the personal side, most of you business owners, understanding you didn't go into business to learn how to do this, right? You're focused in on driving revenue for that. So having that and just helping solve really simple problems to help you understand, hey, this is exactly the opportunity that's out there, and using what you're already spending to help pay for travel. That's what I do at Itinerary Boss. And, I love seeing people travel, and you can do it and save money. I personally love doing that. So I like sharing the wealth of knowledge with other people.
You're bringing back flashbacks actually to back when I used to be a traveling sales rep as well. Um, I remember very quickly you would learn about the different. Sorry here. Very quickly you'd learn about the different kind of points umbrellas, like across different brands. Even Marriott Bonvoy is one that comes to mind right away. But you would start to learn, hey, if I always stay in a hotel that's a part of this family, then not only do I earn points from that, but the more you do it, like maybe start to grow in their loyalty tiers or what have you. You become the silver, then the gold, then the platinum or whatever, and then they'd start to give you even more and more stuff. And obviously, what they're trying to do is they're trying to reward the person who they believe is the decision maker, who's likely the traveler, versus the person at head office or whatever. And then I went through the same evolution as you did, like saying, hey, I should get the credit card that goes along with this because I can then build upon that. Um, you know, uh, what point did you figure out that this could become a business for you?
Yeah, a couple years back, I was trying to figure out. I love to travel. I again wanted a better work life balance. Was done being on the road. QBRs, quota sales rep, right? just wanted to go out and do my own thing. And when I started to go through the real estate investing side of things and realizing here's some problems that we're having, whether it's getting 0% interest cards to get up and running for furnishing our properties or doing light rehabs. I then realized from my real estate investing network, everyone else was having the same problems. When we went to pay vendors who didn't take cards, realized, hey, if that's a common problem and I want to earn points, I bet there's people who don't even travel who want to do the same thing. So when those things started to align, and then just having conversations with people and realizing, hey, people are traveling a lot, but they're hoarding their points. They may stop traveling, similar to what I was doing, and then they are stuck in one. They're stuck with, maybe we'll just use Delta for example, where it's significantly more expensive than if they had the right credit card that they put their expenses on. So that's when I realized, hey, this is a great way that I can go help people, because there's three simple problems that I solve. And if I was having the same ones, and the people who are close to me who know what I do every day still are trying to figure it out, right? That's where I can really go provide a ton of value for people, and helping them earn every day more on their spend, helping them then redeem, from that spend. And then also the investor business angle side of, if your vendors don't take card or there's that 3% fee, here's how you can use that as a, leverage point within your business. And then use that to pay, for your personal travel, because you're already doing that, but sometimes you're paying out of pocket with cash or redeeming poorly. So when I realized those are problems I had years ago, and it's the same problems everyone has every day, that's when I was like, hey, this is the business model that, everyone kept asking me the same questions.
Yeah, and I've gone through this process myself, and sort of did it myself, right? It's like you think about, what do I want? So you do a needs analysis, and then you figure out, where am I spending money and who will take a card and who will not, and then you have to do the research on all the programs. But on top of that, there's the whole bonus thing. Now, it's kind of fortuitous that you're on this week, because last week I had another guest who was also talking about payments, and they were talking about the speed of the payment processing, like for companies that are making sales and how quickly they get it. And we were talking a little bit about the interchange fees last week as well, and how the system works. And we just kind of mentioned casually that a good chunk of the interchange fee goes to the issuing, like the card issuing bank, for example, and that they would then in turn use these things for things like reward points, which is what we're talking about here this week. The reward point programs have a specific earn rate. Like I've got a Marriott Bonvoy Amex card right now that gives me 2 points for every dollar that I spend. But the key to a lot of this stuff, and what you help people with, is sort of hacking the new member bonuses, right? Because that kind of changes the math on all of this, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to, in 2026, we're having a great conversation. At the beginning of the year, everyone's trying to roadmap. Before we hopped on live, I know we were talking, my wife and I sit down and we were doing our road mapping for 2026 around, okay, what cards are we going to have? What cards do we want to keep? And what cards do we want to open with some things that we have coming up? Because life changes, right? And I think the perfect example, David, when you were saying you stayed within Marriott a lot, you may not travel as much anymore. So, Marriott or Delta, I'll just use those two. Like, it may cost you a lot more. It may cost you 80,000 points per night to stay there, or 200,000 points to fly on Delta, when you could go on a different airline or a different hotel, and it could be a third to a fourth less. So I think that's where understanding that and having the right foundation in place helps you then, use those points and maximize those for max value, versus just, hey, I have this one card and this is all I'm putting it on. And, it may not be getting you the most rewards. And that's where I see a lot of people struggling at the beginning, is they go get that one hotel or airline branded card, and then that's all they have, and they might be missing out on value because they can't go get hotel points, or or if they want to fly, overseas and use a different airline, right? They don't have that diversification or transferable points that then they can go utilize. So it's really going back to building out the right foundation is that step one before anything else.
So, in my experience anyway, and please correct me if I've forgotten something, but there seems to be two different kinds of these card point programs. There's either ones that are sponsored by a specific company like Marriott or Delta or whatever airline, and they're trying obviously to keep people within the framework of their business, right? They want to create all the perks and all the reasons why you'd stay at their property or travel on their airline. But then there's other points programs which are a lot more liberal in how you can use the points, right? And so these are more often sponsored by the banks themselves. I'm thinking of like American Express membership reward points, for example, where you're just spending money, you're accumulating these points, and then there's like many different ways that you can then use them across many different providers. So what kind of strategy do you look at with your clients when you're trying to create these plans? Is that what you're talking about? Figuring out at the beginning of the year, what do I want to do? And so which type of plan should I be following?
Yeah, so it's kind of twofold. First, it's, I would just sit down and say, are you a business owner or are you personal? If you're both, great. Where are most of your expenses going? If you're talking to someone who's, we'll say 25 to 30, their discretionary income is probably going to dining and traveling, right? So they're going to have a different strategy than someone who may say, hey, most of my expenses go towards, groceries for my family, and we're, just doing this. So that is where, they'll have a different card strategy in place. But yeah, you going back to what you said, you have Amex membership rewards, you have Chase Ultimate Rewards, Capital One miles, Citi. Those are the ones that are going to give you the best diversification to then have more flexibility to use with what we were mentioning earlier, partners where you have that flexibility to send them to different hotel programs, different airline programs. And those airline programs can be used domestically or internationally. So that's the nice part, is once you have that flexibility. But yeah, that's the first piece, is where most of your expenses going towards. Then what are your goals? If you're a family of four and you just want to travel domestically, you might have a different strategy than someone who wants to travel internationally for two people with, in business class. So it's first, where are those expenses on the personal side, and then business wise too. Like that's where I see a lot of mishaps is, and you came from Amex, so I'll use this example, but hey, I got an Amex Platinum because everyone says, oh, that's the top card, that's the shiny card, but they may only be earning 1x points on everything. And they're using that for dining, advertising, where they could be getting higher multipliers, 2, 3, 4x on those specific daily expenses. So that's a big mistake that I see people making, is getting maybe one card because, a friend told him it was, and it has, right, it's shiny and it has the status, but it doesn't align with they aren't traveling at all. And they got a card that gives them 5x, but then 1x on everything else. So I think it goes back to, what are your daily expenses? What are your goals? And then from there, that's when you can get into, okay, here's, the transfer partner that I could use. And it also is, where's your home airport? That's the biggest thing. If you're out of Charlotte, we're an American hub. So I know I really focus in on who are the partners within the American program, or how do I get points on American? And then I have, being a business owner and having other personal expenses, I have that diversification where then I can use, right, points if we go international. That's where that pool stays. So it is.
So it sounds complex. I mean, have you broken this down into like a step-by-step playbook that you follow when you sit down with a new client?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I would
it's,
imagine you do. Yeah.
yeah. So it's the first thing is, what are your biggest daily expenses? How many cards do you want to have? So if you want one card, right, just go get a 2x everyday card that earns 2x on everything. Keep it simple. If you say, hey, I'm personal and I want multiple and I have a business, like that's then where breaking those down and thinking through that is going to be the number one thing. And then
Because
it's,
it could be that there is an ideal personal card that could actually be part of the same program as a business card, which could actually have a different issuer, but it's also part of the same program. and you're pooling the personal and business spend into one bucket to get greater efficiency.
Exactly. Yep. And you can pool those points together too. And that's the nice part is, and if you're a business owner, you have that competitive advantage where, again, if you're earning, we'll just say 100,000 points on your personal side yearly, 100,000 on the business, you're able to pull those to have 200,000. And if it's in people, if you want to keep it simple too, if you just want to have it in one bank and have that one dashboard, that's the recommendation right off the bat is just go in that. But if you're someone who's like, I want to optimize, I want to get 4x here, 3x here, like it all is a personal decision. And there are tools that can help you track all of that. Cause that's the biggest hurdle next is, hey, I got these 3 cards. Do I close? Do I open? How do I track this? And there's some amazing apps and things that remind you of, here's what you get with this card. Here's right. You need to use these things here. So that's where there's apps that tools have been created now that make this a little bit easier to track.
So what would be the downside then of closing off a card if you
Yeah.
decide you don't want to use that anymore?
Yeah. So it could impact your credit. So I'll give an example. I've had a Capital One venture for almost 10 years. We're moving, just life happens. We recently got married. We're now combining things and we want one simple card. So we're actually both downgrading it. We're not closing it because that credit line has been open and my credit score and history is great with that. Where if you downgrade it to a no annual fee card, that's not going to impact it. You just call the bank, they do it for you. That's always my suggestion. If people are, and this, I would suggest consulting your financial advisor on this piece. But if you are going to close a card that you've had for a year or two, that's not going to impact your score as much as one that you've had 10, 15 years. So for those,
And in the banking industry, this is called a product change. So you may end up with a different card being mailed to you, but it could have exactly the same number on it because it's still the same account with the same bank. It's just all of a sudden your features, your program, et cetera, could change.
yeah. And a lot of people right now, and I'm sure I get texts all the time, why did my annual fee go up to this? Because what the card companies are doing now is, and if you see this and you go through and you're like, why are there so many benefits and why do I have to worry about quarterly or monthly credits? They're starting to do couponing, which is what we call it in the points world. And that what they're trying to do is get you to get more value out of it, but you have to there's more mental energy that goes into it. So when I talk about some of those apps, Card Pointers is a great one that you can download that will actually automatically track that for you, send you notifications when you have those bonuses and when you have those quarterly credits. You don't have to mentally track all of that.
I've noticed that the new card signups are becoming more complex. At one time, it used to be, get our credit card, we'll give you 50,000 points. Now it's get our card. If you spend this amount in the first 90 days, we'll give you this many points. Then if you spend another amount in 180 days, we'll give you this many points. And in the first year, if you breach this threshold, you get the other points. Of course, the headline said get 100,000 points if you get this card, but they really want to make sure you're engaged and you're swiping that thing for a whole year at least before they kind of deliver all of what they promised.
Yeah, they're a lot, and sometimes it's saying up to. So that's something also. If you look and you see, hey, it's 175,000 points, and it could be up to. That means when you go to apply, it's not going to run. It's not going to pull a hard credit right then and there. It's going to tell you, hey, you qualify for out of 175, maybe 125. And if you want to move forward, then that's when it goes through that process. But those are some things just to know. And yeah, perfect example, David, like Capital One Venture X, which is a phenomenal business card. If you're a high spending business owner and you want something with, 2x on everything, you keep it simple, you don't run into that credit limit like you might at Chase. So that's one that a lot of people like, but it was, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was like, if you spend, I think it was like maybe 30,000 the first 3 months, you get 150K points. And then it was another like 6 figures and you get another like 300K points. So yeah, what they're trying to do is get you into the ecosystem, spending more. And for someone every day who isn't, hey, I'm trying to use this as a lifestyle business and have multiple cards and do all this, right? They're wanting to get you into their bank portal, which is it's smart, but yeah, they do make it complex for a reason.
So I would imagine that you have some clients that want to keep things simpler, and you have other clients that are interested in maxing out every potential advantage they can. So for your most adventurous client, like how many cards would they have?
Between 5 or 10 on the
Yeah.
personal and business. If it's personal, usually around that five. Once you start to get into business, it's like, hey, we travel, we have shipping, we have ads, we do this. So they're then trying to get those multipliers where they can earn anywhere from 2 to 5x on those daily expenses. But on the personal side, it's usually one or two that are their daily drivers. And then if they have a hotel program that they like, depending on if they're traveling for work and they want to use it and their work lets them use it. That's a great example. Or a lot of the times it's, hey, we just want to we have travel sports are super expensive now and you have to cover the
Mm.
weekends, right? We want to have these hotel branded cards so we can get some free nights, earn, elevated points like a 9x, for example, at Hyatt on a Hyatt card. Like we want to earn that when we're staying at those. So that's when they'll kind of build out those other hotel branded type card strategies.
What is the rate of change in these programs? Like when you create a program with someone, obviously you're operating under a certain set of rules that have been established by the card issuers and the airlines or hotels, et cetera. How often do you find you have to kind of get your wrench out and retool someone's plan? But because not because of their priorities changing, but because the programs have changed.
Um, as of recent, it's been a decent amount, but we do that through a membership. So we do that on the back end through a community where we're updating people on that. It's not going back directly to, that specific person and saying, hey, you need to go open this card and close this. It's we're updating people on that part. And then they realize like, okay, this is the strategy that I should go through. And we have monthly calls updating people on that, right? What are new partners? What are some things that we're seeing? And we always just share transparently, like here's exactly how I'm thinking. This is exactly what I'm doing. This is why I like this. This is what I don't like about this. So we're always sharing those updates within our community rather than going back to one person each, because a lot of the times most people have a lot of the exact same questions and want to travel to a lot of the same places. So getting them involved and talking and right collaborating there, I found has worked really well because people are usually around the same level when they're trying to learn this.
Yeah, yeah. I remember back, when I was working for Amex, when I was, in their corporate card and revolving credit, division, I would go out and I would speak to business owners or CFOs of bigger companies, and one of the points of pushback that I would sometimes get would be, "Well, not everybody takes Amex." And my response to that was always, "Well, let me do a vendor analysis." We actually used to have people output spreadsheets of all of the people that they were spending money with, and we would do a match analysis and go back to them and say, look, um, there's enough of your vendors that will take Amex that you would effectively max out the credit line I would give you anyway. And then here's the benefits that you would achieve from that. And and it would sometimes introduce a little bit of complication into their accounts payable department because they would have to say, okay, for these vendors, we're going to use this Amex card. For the other vendors, we're still going to use, wires or EFTs or ACHs or whatever they were doing. It can make things a little bit more complex. Do you help with sort of that training and guidance for people within companies to make sure that the right things are going on the right payment uh, platforms?
So I work with partners who can help with that. So if you're a higher spending business owner, I'll team up with the different bank issuers they have account teams who can help with that on the back end. And I have direct relationships with them for those specific use cases. And then I know we've talked about this in the past, but there's also another product integration that we work with called Melio. There's Plastiq that we've talked about on the personal side. Melio, similarly, where you can run, if you say, for example, I'll use in the real estate side of stuff, a vendor who doesn't take card. Well, if I want to pay them via ACH because I want to earn the points, or a wire, I just had a Christmas holiday party where they still needed, a wire for $500. So I just went on my account, sent it over to them, and it shows up. So there's strategies on the back end that you can utilize, and those teams too have direct like strategic account teams that I'm happy to introduce people to because they are really the experts when it comes to that, and they can set you up right where then it makes it a simple, repeatable process where you're not having to each time you have to pay a vendor, log in, go do this, jump through hoops. It's really just that beginning process. And then once it gets flowing, it's exactly like an ACH is going to be when it gets taken out at the first of the month for a mortgage, for example.
I hang on to that thought because it's interesting to talk about when it actually makes sense to use a service like Plastiq or Melio
Mhm.
because you end up paying the credit card fee, but it can still be the right choice for some people.
Mhm.
We're just let me play this quick little sponsor message here for 24 seconds, and we'll be right back. Today's live stream interview is brought to you by Zero, the cloud based accounting software package that makes sense for my small business. Look down in the description to find a link that will give you, as at the time of this recording, 90% off your first 6 months of subscription. You'll also find a link to the video in which I explain why I chose Zero for my business. So when you hear that somebody could put something on a card, but they have to pay like an extra 2.7 or 3% more, most people's initial reaction is to recoil from that because they think, why would I want to pay more? Do you want to dive into this one? Because I used to walk through this with people every day of my life. It used to be my job.
Yeah, and funny enough, I was getting this question all the time that I started to run every 6 weeks a live workshop where I dive deep into the subject, and it's why like the credit card 3% fee myth, and how to pay vendors and how it could be eating into your bottom line. So if you're wanting to travel, yes, this is a great strategy. If you're like, hey, I get 1%, 2% cash back, probably not the best strategy because you're looking at the 3% fee, right? So I always recommend if someone's wanting to do this, don't use a 1X card, use a 2X card because then you can get right. And also this is a business tax deduction when you pay that fee. So that's something to think through when you go and then redeem. So I've ran the math, and I'll get more into the details. I don't want to overwhelm people here in that live workshop. But if you go redeem with a 2X card and then you go redeem those points for 1.1 cents per point, which is how that's calculated in the redemption world, you're going to be breaking even, which a 1.0 cent, a 1 cent redemption for people who are familiar with statement credits. If you go pay on your Capital One venture card and you redeem that just as a back towards your balance, you're getting that 1 cent redemption. That's so simple. When you start to transfer those to different hotel programs, airline programs, that's when you start to get into the 2, the 3, the 4. Last year we were getting 6, 7 cent redemptions. Um,
Yep.
yeah, so that's where it makes sense. But if you're just doing, hey, I just want simple cash back, or I'm just using a 1X card, or I don't really care to travel, I don't want to learn how to do this, probably, that's up to you, but it doesn't really make sense. But if you have there's clients of ours that they were missing out on 350K a month in vendor and material spend as a developer, and they wanted to travel. They wanted these benefits and they saw the value, but they got set up with the wrong card. They weren't
Yep.
doing it. They didn't realize. So once they realized that, they said, "Oh, this is a no-brainer. Like for us, we want to go on these trips and we want to learn how to do it." So it goes back to what are your goals? And it's not the right fit for everyone. But if your goals are that and you're paying a ton of money out of pocket personally in cash for travel, it's a great strategy that you can put into place.
I this was the example I used to give to people all the time, and it's the numbers that I'm familiar with because and again, I haven't worked for Amex for 10 years, but back in the day, the platinum card was earning 1.25 points for every dollar that you spent. And so I would say to people, like, if you have $100,000 worth of spending, and you pay the 3% extra from Plastiq or Melio, that $3,000 actually doesn't cost you as the business owner $3,000, because what you've done is you've reduced the profit of your business by $3,000. So if you've got a 40 or 50% marginal tax rate, the actual out-of-pocket cost to you as the business owner is going to be $1,400 or $1,600. Now, you will then earn 125,000 points, which at the time would be enough for like a first class flight to Europe, which would normally retail for like $6,000 or $7,000. And so your after tax take home would go down by $1,500, and then but in exchange you got a flight that would have cost you 5 or 6 grand if you had paid for it. And to your point, that was the place where it really worked, where with people that were looking for those kinds of redemptions, I had people like home builders who started to do this all the time, and they started to go on vacation every month. Like
Yeah.
they would fly. Every month they would make a long weekend where they would take like Friday off. They would take off Thursday night. They would fly like overnight to Europe, for example, or they'd fly down south in the wintertime, and they'd have a beautiful 3 nights at a luxury place, fly back on Sunday. And they were doing it every month just because the volume of
Yeah.
points was so incredible that they could afford this. Like, and it was a total game changer for them as far as lifestyle.
Yeah, 100%. That's a perfect example. The client I was just mentioning, yeah, home builder, they just went down to Puerto Rico and they want to plan another trip in March. And they're like, is this a good cent per point? I go, it doesn't really matter because you're earning so many points. And he's like, okay, cool. I'm going to fly first class. And I'm like, yeah, you're earning so many. And that's the goal too, is yeah. And that platinum, for people in that industry, if you're watching, they just ramped it up from 1.5x to 2x on any construction type materials over $5,000 in purchases. So like if your goals are to travel, that's a great card. But that's, again, it's always just going back to, and I love how you broke it down from it's that tax deduction, it's float too, for those type of strategies. So yeah, but again, it just goes back to what are the goals? Because if someone has no desire to travel and then they see it as, well, I just lost money, then it might not be the right situation.
I had plenty of clients too who were just exploiting float. I can think of another customer right off the top of my head. We only gave him a $50,000 limit on the card, but he was buying a couple $100,000 a month from one supplier that did take Amex. And instead of trying to charge pay all the time to get it all through his card for points, he was looking just for float. So what he would do is the day after his statement cutoff, he would pay off his card, and he would call that retailer and supplier and just say, charge this card 50 grand. He would like literally max it out on the first day. And then 29 days later, we would issue him the new statement, which was due in 30 days. And then on the day it was due, he would pay it in full. And the next day, make that phone call again. So he basically took our $50,000 limit and turned it into 6 59-day interest-free loans over the course of the year. He basically expanded his operating capital by 50 grand with no cost at all. And he was earning points on the stuff as well. But it was really, as far as what his goals were, he was maxing things out. And that's the kind of conversation I used to have with larger companies, because if you're dealing with a business owner, of course, they're interested in points. But if you're talking to the CFO of a company who represents other shareholders, I mean, they can't take the points. There's a conflict there. But what sort of the value proposition I used to make with those guys was all about, hey, do you want to expand your operating capital with no extra cost? Do you want to like push out your payables, day sales outstanding, or was it DSO? No, it's the other one. DPO, days payable outstanding. You'd extend that with no cost, as long as we had enough vendors who would take the card. But some people, if they were in a business that had some kind of roller coaster cash flow, they would end up using Plastiq or Melio when they had to like, grease the wheels a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's spot on. And yeah, there was a direct to consumer company that ran a ton of ads, 2% cash back, moved over to uncapped at 3x ads, and they wanted to travel, and they were flying economy over to their suppliers in China and over long flights, and now they don't have to fly in economy and pay cash because they're earning so many points. And for them, same thing, they're like, wait, we can get 58 days worth of float with this strategy. And it can change the model of, yeah, your business and cash flow and just different strategies that people don't think through because they, it's, you aren't supposed to know all this.
Don't they want you to? I mean, isn't that the card issuers? The card issuers obviously want you to be using their card to the best of your ability because they're earning a profit off the interchange. Like
Yeah.
even people who never pay a dollar of credit card interest, the credit card companies are making money off that account because of the little interchange spread or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. Yeah. They want you to, but they just make it complex where people, everyone was told credit cards are bad, debt's bad. And until you, until you dive deeper into it and get into business and understand how you can leverage it. Yeah, it's, that's,
I My opinion is that credit cards can be great. Carrying balances is bad. How about that?
yes, I agree. I completely agree. Look, I grew up in the invest, not, and that's why I took. I mean, my background, my parents more invested in the stock market, but not a ton in real estate. And for me, I got into this from I was a high earning W-2 and had a massive tax bill. I'm like, how do I get, how do I, and got into real estate and started to learn, you know, the benefits of calculated leverage, good debt, and never paying a, balance on just paying it off in full. That's, and when you do that, then you start to get rewarded. And that's what this game and strategies are for. It's not for someone who has a significant amount of debt and doesn't have a good financial foundation. It's for the people who are, you're already spending the money. Why not get rewarded for it? And a lot of people spend a ton. I always ask, like, it's always interesting to hear how much people spend on personal travel. And it could be 10, 20, 30 grand, and they have the points and the ability to do it. They just aren't maximizing. So that's where this strategy really comes into play, and people really can be benefit from it.
Yeah, yeah. I, I, I'm with you. I'm with you. Well, amongst your clients, what categories of spending do you see the largest volumes of dollars? Like you mentioned ads a couple of times. Are there other categories that tend to be big for card acceptance to make this process easier?
Yeah, I would say supplies. I mean, you have ads, that's huge. Travel's obviously, if you're doing a lot of travel, that's an easy one. But I would say the most missed opportunity would be supplies. Whether that's vendors, if you're in the real estate construction business that we just mentioned, if it could be labor or it could be materials. So I think it's those type of things where vendors don't take cards, and you can use something like Plastiq or Melio. Those are probably the ones I see miss the most on the business side. Personal side, uh, your everyday expenses. I mean, sometimes it's just not having the right card in place. And there are some cool things that just launched where you can earn on your mortgage on the personal side. So when I mentioned that's what my wife and I were road mapping out, we were coming up with a strategy about how do we take advantage of that and start to earn on that, and then just make it simple with one card that kind of rolls up all our expenses and earns on that.
Now, a lot of the people who are tuned in here today are business owners or they're people who are planning to get into business. And whenever I get into any kind of conversation about credit cards and credit card acceptance and playing this points game and everything, I always point out the converse, which is if you're a business owner, accepting credit cards has that merchant discount fee associated with it. And this is what drives some people to say, I don't want to accept credit cards from my customers, et cetera, because they don't want to pay that fee. But I think the thing that you need to think about if you're a business owner is think about the conversation Ross and I are having right now. There is an army of people out there who are irrationally exuberant about accumulating points. And if they're calling around looking for a supplier and you tell them, yes, I'm happy to take your credit card, and someone else makes them jump through hoops and doesn't want to do it, guess what? You just get the business by default because that's what they're looking for when they call around. They're looking for somebody who will take their card. One of the first businesses I had when I was younger was a junk removal business. And we accepted credit cards. And back in those days, you had to have like a bank that was a member of the MasterCard network. You had to have an account there to take MasterCard, and you had to have an account at a Visa network bank to take Visa. And then Amex was another thing. You had to like call Amex themselves and kind of get hooked up with them. And so this was one of the reasons why Amex was less accepted. And we went through the trouble of becoming an Amex merchant. And it was amazing what would happen is people would call us up and say, yeah, we've got a room full of broken office furniture. We're not supposed to put it in the dumpster. Can you guys come and clean it out? And I'd be like, yep, we can. We'll be there at this time. And then they would never ask how much it was. The next question out of their mouth was, do you guys take Amex? Because my corporate card's an Amex card. He's like, yep, we take Amex. And in my mind, I was like, I would adjust the pricing accordingly in my mind, but they would never call anyone else ever again. Like, because they had been through so much hassle trying to deal with, small purchases from local suppliers who wouldn't, like, they were given that card to take care of these, small purchases that would come up in the office, and to say, I won't take that. It just, like, people don't think about the frustration that you cause on the part of that customer, right? Because if that, office manager for a big company, if they've been given that credit card and you say, I won't take it, what does that mean? Often it means they have to pay you with their personal funds, meaning they take out a personal Visa or MasterCard, and then they have to submit an expense claim to get the money back. And that's not something that anybody wants to do. So I'm always a big proponent for anyone in the world of small business. Make sure you accept any form of payment your customers may ever dream to use. And I mean, I even see it around here in like tourism businesses where people will actually have stickers for like Alipay and various like Asian card networks that we don't necessarily have here. But obviously, it's because they've gotten like tourists through the door that want to have like some kind of Chinese credit card or something, and they're going out of their way to make that person feel welcome and to let them know, hey, fill your boots, fill your shopping bags, and we're happy to let you pay us here.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's like you said, it's one, if that office manager or someone's been tasked with one task to go do it, it creates, if you say yes, their day is easier, it flows. And then for you as the business owner, that customer is going to keep coming back to you because
Yeah.
if that if that owner really cares about points, well, guess what? They don't want to go anywhere else, and they don't want to. They've already got that system set up, and they don't have to go anywhere else. So yeah, I mean it's a great creative solution. And like you said, you were doing the math in your head. If you did, like you already know. And sometimes businesses might. I mean, I've seen this. They've said, "Hey, can we pay early?" And there's just ways to start to negotiate those things down. And then from a business owner standpoint, guess what? They probably have friends who like the same things that then want to travel, who want to earn points, who you'll get referrals to. So yeah, that's a great strategy. I mean, if I was a business owner and was accepting those, I would go out and create short form content and just be like, does your vendors not accept cards? Are you trying to travel? Are you like, there's so many ways that you could take this and target it. And you probably could get some people like, oh, what? This is crazy. I need to go talk to this person. Like there's,
So there was a customer I had here regionally, and they were a retailer they were a dealer for like trailers, like utility trailers and like open or enclosed trailers, like all that kind of stuff, right? And and they famously would only take credit cards for like accessories and parts, but they wouldn't take credit cards for someone who wanted to buy a $15,000 trailer. And I asked the guy when I was in there, I said, "Why won't you take a credit card for a $15,000 trailer?" And he said, "Well, because of the fee." I'm like, does anyone ever ask for a deal on the trailer? And he's like, "Yeah, all the time. They're like, if it's $15,000, they'll always say, well, you take 10, 13.8 or whatever." And I said, okay. And so you're taking a 6 or 7 or 8% discount on these things on a regular basis? And he's like, yeah. And I said, well, why don't you just say to people, no, we don't deal at all actually, but we're happy to take your credit card so you can earn reward points. And then it'll only cost you the discount fee. And 4 months later, he said he tried it a few times and it then became his policy. He was like, we don't negotiate anymore. We just offer to people that they can use their credit card and collect a gazillion points. And he said people smirk. He's like they look like they're getting away with a crime. Like they're so happy that we'll take their credit card for this $15,000 trailer. And he said, I'm happy because I'm not discounting as much. So it depends on what you're selling to whom.
yeah. I mean, personally, for cleaners, when we go for our rentals, we had to get a new cleaner for our rentals because I had one long story, caused some water damage at one of them. And when I went out, I'm like, the first question I asked, and obviously I'm deep in the points game, so I care. But I was like, do you take credit card? No, you have to do ACH, you have to do this, you have to do that. So like jumping through those mental hoops for multiple things, it wasn't worth it. I'm like, I'll pay $20 extra per property to to just keep it simple and pay them and earn the points versus having to jump through this. So no, I think and you'd be surprised is there are people that they actually do really care about that.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Um, Ross, this has been a lot of fun. If someone's interested in learning more about you and about points, like where do they find you online?
Yeah. So website, all my socials are itineraryboss.com. And then it's just itinerary boss. I do have a free resource, which this is the best way to get started. It is your 5-step roadmap to your next free luxury vacation and the one card that gets you there. If you listened in, you probably have an idea of what maybe that one card could be. But that's a great resource. It'll get you started. And then, like I mentioned, if you're like, hey, I just want to, you know, learn how to do this. I don't want to have to go through, workshops. We do have that membership community, which if you go to the website, you'll be able to find that.
Awesome. Ross, this has been a great interview. And I will put the itineraryboss.com link in the notes as well for people if you're driving or something. If you're listening to the audio, you'll be able to find it there. And I want to thank everyone very much for joining us. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thanks, David. This is fun.
So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I've prepared for you. You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor. Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.